welcome to the 11th broadcast of Community Library Training. I think maybe this is one of the programs that we have really been looking forward to. We have about 17 programs in total, and this is number 11, which tells us where we are. Mary Claire Sherman, you have the distinction of being the only person in Community Library Training to be on the program twice. And our students know why that is, because we've been talking about the forthcoming broadcast for the 27th, and that we were going to do something we really wanted to do. Mary Claire, it's true, I think, almost really with every broadcast we've had, that we've had to choose certain elements of the discipline. When we talked about the historical library, we had to select just parts of it to share. And it's true with what we're going to do today. We're talking about your field and mine, really, more or less. And we're trying to share an element of children's books. And we chose Books for All Reasons as an intro to this program. Only we're kind of down to selecting just a couple. When we talked about what we would like to do in terms of sharing children's books with the students, you really had a pretty good idea, and if that can be kind of a lead-in for you, why did you think we needed to approach this the way we are today?
Well, I guess I'm concerned about some of the award books that come up. Many times people that are out in the field that are trying to decide what's a good book, what's really popular, what are kids reading today, and they go to the to the books that the kids are always asking for, and I guess it concerns me because there's so many really fine books being written for children that if we can sort of get these into the libraries, and that we in the library field can expose children to them, or students, or whatever level, that we can extend and enrich their lives and make it something a little more special.
I know that you feel that way. I think I'm going to remind our students, although I think they probably will remember, that Mary Claire is, she'll laugh when I say this, she is a member of a distinguished committee through the American Library Association, the Children's Services Division, and if you remember at all, our fourth broadcast, we were talking a little bit about that, but this is the committee of professional librarians. Maybe you're not all librarians, but you're involved in selecting the outstanding awards, the Caldecott and Newbery Award, and I think in your, in the statement you just made to us, you indicated that sometimes we're not quite as comfortable with the Caldecott and Newbery Award. And we decided not to talk about that a whole lot on the program, but there is an award that I think that you mentioned that we should talk about.
Basically, the Newbery and the Caldecott are given for literary excellence and artistic achievement. There is another award that's very personal and very exciting, and it's the Young Reader's Choice Award that the Pacific Northwest Library Association sponsors. And this is an award that's actually chosen by students. The books are chosen they were published 3 years ago, and students actually are able to read the books and discuss them over a period of from September to April, and then choose which is their most favorite book. And I'm really excited about that list, because these are the books that children like, that they're reading, that they find exciting, and they have distinction, and that's what makes it so good.
If, as is customary with any time there is an award, there's always a formal presentation, or most always a formal presentation, and an acceptance speech. And I remember being present at the PNLA conference, that's the Pacific Northwest Library Association conference, when William Corbin, had won for his book. And he said what was, I think, probably a very characteristic thing that any author would say when they received that award, and that was, out of all of the awards, this one means something. This one was chosen by children. And maybe we're going to develop this particular point through children and some of their attitudes. But what would you say in general, Mary Claire, about the kinds of books? Are they highly popular, like we tend to think of Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys? Do children just more or less eat them up? I've heard librarians say. would you like to just generalize about the kind of books that are considered?
Well, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Beverly Cleary, and she's been an award winner 3 times. The kinds of books are books that once children are turned on to them, once they're aware of them, yes, they are popular. In fact, they become more popular. I've heard students say after reading a Beverly Cleary book, gee, this is really good. You know, has she written any more? Let's see, Patricia Beatty has also written award winners. I don't know.
One of the things that I think that I really remember when we talk about whether or not a book is popular was the feeling when I very first got in the field and we were voting on the books, and I hadn't read them and thought, okay, library lady, you better know those books so that you can talk to children about them. And your statement of, gee, this was good, tells me a little bit that we maybe have lost some credibility now and then with children until maybe we can build it up, because having recommended a book that they weren't sure if it was going to be considered for award, they weren't really sure that was more or less the way they liked to read. They liked to read good, popular things. And I remember the first time after encouraging youngsters to read, I think it was Snyder's book, and The Egypt Game, I think is what it was, and talking someone into it and having them go away, I felt, you know how the feeling when you know they're taking it only because you were the librarian and you said to, but they didn't think they're really going to like it.
And then they come back.
Then they come back, and the reward is great because they say to you, it really was good.
Yes.
And I don't know. We're really lucky, Mary Claire, in that the kinds of things that we're trying to say as adults are said rather nicely for us by some children. And what we'd really like to do at this point is, without further talking to adults to each other, kind of like to drop in on some boys and girls who are having a discussion about the Young Reader's Choice. I think it would be interesting for you to see what it's like from their point of view.
Canyon Winter. So I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but I have read some of his other books that are just really good. Most of them are on wilderness.
Is it Angry Water?
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
Isn't that one you said was in Alaska?
Yes.
Where at?
I can't remember.
Angry Waters is in Alaska, I think.
Yes, Angry Waters is right.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an Alaskan story, which is what makes it so special to us, I think. Only half hour. 15 minutes, whatever.
What is ours? YRCA stand for?
Young Reader's Choice Award.
Yeah.
Which is what we're here to talk about today. Okay, can you tell me what Young Reader's Choice Award is about?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's the award.
Harry Hartman thought that they ought to have an award that
Excuse me.
that kids could choose their own books that they like, and they choose books from the last 3 years that have been published in the last 3 years.
Okay, it had to be published 3 years ago, right? And it's, when is it presented? And who votes on these books?
The kids.
The children.
From 4th grade through 8th.
4th grade, right? And the books are mostly aimed at what grade? Russell, can you tell me?
5th and 6th.
5th and 6th, right. Well, why don't we go ahead and give some of our reviews of the books that we've read.
Where's my Canyon Winter report? I want to review that.
Why don't you go ahead and start, Mike, with yours on Dominic.
Oh.
I remember.
Okay. Well, we're not on right now, are we? Oh, okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to give a report on a book called Dominic, and it's written by William Steig. And have any of you ever read those Superman comic books on TV? Superman comic books, or any things like that? Well, if you have, then do you like them? And have you ever watched Shazam on TV, if you get to watch it? And if you don't like any of those, do you like to see fights between the good guys and the bad guys? Well, if you like any of those, you're probably going to like the book. As I said before, it's called Dominic. And Dominic is a young dog who sets off to seek adventure because he's tired of city life. He meets up with the Doomsday Gang several times, and the Doomsday Gang is a gang of thieves that's always causing trouble to the neighboring animals and people that live there. And he inherits a big treasure of gold and jewels and pearls from an old pig that has died, and he has to protect that from the Doomsday Gang. And as he goes along, he finds the treasure becoming a burden because he has to carry it everywhere he goes. So eventually he gets rid of it by giving it to animals that help him. And he was in town celebrating a wedding, and all the men in town went out after the Doomsday Gang, and they finally just got rid of him. And he was walking, then after he did that, he's gone seeking his fortune again, and he came into a big forest. And he thought how nice it was, and he was always going around smelling the smells in the forest. And he came up upon a peacock, and then the peacock took him to what do you think he took him to?
Okay, thank you, Mike. That's very good. Let's talk about a little bit about the style of this book. What did the author do to his style to make it go along with this story?
He made Dominic always win and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of
okay.
a hero.
Okay.
Good guys for that.
Was the style of the book light, or was it serious, or?
It was
Light.
Okay, because it was a light adventure story, probably. What would you do if you suddenly became heir to the riches that Dominic became heir to?
I don't know.
I'd settle down.
You'd settle down.
I don't know.
Why would you
Not
settle
if you were
down?
seeking
Well,
adventure.
because if he had all that riches, then like he had to carry it all around, and it gets to be a burden.
Well, I don't know what I'd do because I doubt if I'll ever come up with all those riches.
Oh, I know, but I bet he didn't expect to either.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know what I would do.
What would you do, Nancy, if you came up with?
Probably put it in a safe or something, then go on with my adventure, come back and get it when I
Okay, as Dominic thought, you know, his adventure was more important than the riches, and so he gave the riches away so that he could continue living the way he wanted to. What do you think is a good reason for having this book on the shelf?
To provide entertainment.
Okay, it's just a fun book to read, isn't it? Would you recommend this book to any of your friends to read?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead with the upstairs room now? Nancy, would you like to give us this report?
I'm last.
I'm going to report on the upstairs room, and it's by Joanna Reese. It's an autobiography book.
What's an autobiography? Excuse me.
It's a book that someone writes about themselves, about their own life.
Okay.
And it's fun. It's fun to play hide and seek, but not when you have to hide for your life. And that's what happened to Joanna Reese and her family. And they lived in a town called Winterswilk, 20 miles from the border of Holland and Germany. And that was when Hitler was fighting, and he hated Jews, and she was a Jew. She and her family were Jewish. And so Hitler was taking all the privileges from the Jews, and eventually he was taking their lives away in murder camps, saying they were labor camps and they were taking real good care of them and everything. But really, you know, they went into these showers and they would smash them and kill them. And so they found out this by some underground workers that found out everything and made newspapers secretly and gave it to the people so they could find out what was happening. And so some Jews went to the labor camps not knowing what they really were and got killed. But this family that knew the Deleuze, that was Joanna's family, and they decided to hide. So her father and her older sister went and hid someplace else, and she and her other sister Cindy, went and hid with a Dutch Gentile farm family called the Oostervils in Oslo.
Oslo.
And they hid in an upstairs room for more than 2 years. And they went through the experiences of staying in a closet, hiding in a closet and holding their breath while German soldiers searched the closet that they were hiding in. And Joanna Reese had only planned to record her experiences in World War II for her daughters, but she remembered many details. And so it turned out she was writing a book. And she and her family now live in New York, and occasionally every few years they go to Europe to visit friends, and they spend a couple days with the Oostervelds.
That was really a good report. Thank you, Nancy. Let's talk about the importance of setting in a story. Why was the setting so very important in this story?
Because that's what most it was all about. That's what the title of the book is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the title of this book mean, The Upstairs Room?
Well, that's probably something she remembered in her mind most of all because she stayed in that upstairs room just indoors for almost 2 years. that was probably the main setting of the book.
Right. The historical background that you gave us, too, is very good. Why is it important that we know about the historical background in order to better appreciate this book?
Why would you
You'd
want to
get all
hide in the
lost.
first place?
If you got lost, you wouldn't know what time it was or anything. You wouldn't know which war it was.
Okay.
But you have to know why they were hiding in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why it was important that you tell us some of this historical background, and you did a really good job. We talked about the author and the fact that this is an autobiography. What is the difference between an autobiography and a biography?
Well, a biography, anybody can write about somebody's life.
Okay, what is an autobiography then?
An autobiography is a book that someone writes about their own life.
Okay. What would have been your feelings if you had been in Joanna Reese's place?
I'd be scared.
You'd feel hate towards the German soldiers.
Okay, and this is one thing that I noticed in her writing. I really didn't feel that she wrote with any hatred or resentment, and I was surprised. Do you think that if you had been forced to dye your hair and hide away for 2 years in a room, don't you think that you would be resentful?
Yes.
And I was really impressed by this fact that she told it without resentment, that she just told the story as it happened to her. And I think this is what made it one of the reasons it is such a good story. Let's go on to you, Russell. You read The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson is about some mean kids, the Herdmans. They carry knives and smoke cigars and chew tobacco, and they even set fire to Fred Shoemaker's broken down old tool house. And anyway, it all began when one of the Herdmen stole Charlie's cake from school. And Charlie said, "Oh, it's okay. We get all the refreshments we want in church." And so of course, the Herdmans decided to go to church. Of course, they didn't want to go to church to learn. They just wanted to go so they could get all their refreshments. And anyway, they started going to church, and they got involved in this Christmas pageant because the one that led the Christmas pageant broke her leg and was in the hospital. And everyone said that if she hadn't been in the hospital, the Herdmans would never got into the Christmas pageant. And they were all mean. The girls too. And anyway, they said they were talking about King Herod. They were talking about how terrible he was, and the Herdmans really hated him. And in the story it said they were surprised that it couldn't have been one of their own ancestors, Herod Herdman. And that's how they got involved with this Christmas pageant.
Okay, that was very good. What was the style of this book?
Oh, it was just, I don't know what kind of style.
Was it very light, or was it a heavy book, a serious book?
No,
Funny?
It was funny.
Okay. Do you think that the style of the author matched the story?
Yeah,
I did.
Okay. Now, we've talked about this in a couple of different stories. Do you think it's important that the style the author uses matches the
Yeah.
story?
You can tell, really, if it does.
That's right. Because if it doesn't, nothing matches and it doesn't go together very well. And consequently, it doesn't come out to be a very humorous book or a very serious book or whatever.
The author doesn't match a story. The author doesn't know how to write this kind of story.
Okay. Very good. Let's talk about the theme of this book. What was the theme in this story?
Oh, well, I wouldn't know what to say.
Does anyone know?
Like the theme well, I wouldn't know it for that book, but I might know it for mine.
Okay.
Well,
Let's
the
talk about
main
yours.
theme is he's always winning and things like that.
And
Okay. The theme, too, was that he felt that his lifestyle was more
Yeah.
important than his money. And so he gave the money away so that he can continue to live his own life. Right.
probably the theme in The Best Christmas Pageant Ever is about some scene is maybe that these kids named the Herdmans changed considerably over Christmas when they had to do a Christmas pageant.
Okay, right. What were the kids like before the Christmas pageant?
Oh, they were mean.
Terrible.
Okay. Do you think that they were deliberately mean, that this was something
No.
that... Okay.
Because like in the story they said, well, the Herdmans probably didn't just wake up in the morning and decide, oh, we're going to burn down Fred Shoemaker's tool house. They just happened to do it.
Right.
With Leroy Herdman's Young Einstein chemistry set, which he stole from the hardware store. And he was so mad because it burned up with the fire before he had a chance to make a couple of bombs with it.
Okay, how do they change and what causes them to change?
Learning about Jesus and all that, the story of baby Jesus, and they got mad because King Herod wanted to kill baby Jesus, so they were going to go kill King Herod.
Okay, and consequently, they looked at it from a different point of view, didn't they?
Yeah, they said, someone said that if the Herdmans had to take over the Christmas pageant, they probably would have ended it with Herod being hanged.
Yeah.
How do you think you deal with people like this? I'm sure that all of you know some mean kids. How do you think that you could deal with them, and how do you think that you could help them better deal with themselves?
I'd stay away from them.
Treat them nice.
Yeah.
Instead of always staying away from them. That's one reason that they're mean.
Well, what happened in that book was when the oldest girl, Claude, her name was, and she was the oldest one, and when she had just been born, the herdman's father had jumped on a locomotive and steamed out and abandoned them forever, and their poor mother just couldn't take it, so she had lost her control over him. So they
And she worked at the shoe factory for 2 shifts. And they said that if Mr. Herdman had gone away on a railroad train, nobody could blame him.
Yeah.
What did you especially like about this book? Nancy, have you read it? Mm-hmm. What did you especially like about it?
Well, it was funny. It was humorous.
Okay.
And the author had a lot of good ideas.
Yes, he pointed out the fact that not necessarily are mean children always mean, that if they were treated differently, maybe they would be different too. And that sometimes we all have reasons for behaving the way we do. Well, let's go on now and talk about just books in general. If you could choose to be any character from any book that you've read recently, which character would it be?
I'd be Dominic.
Why would you be Dominic?
Oh, he had all kinds of exciting adventures.
And he got that treasure.
Yeah.
Could you
he was
say,
good.
like, I'd rather be Peter Grayson in this book?
Okay, why would you rather be Peter Grayson?
Well, because I always liked camping.
Yeah, I'd rather
Can you
be
tell us
Peter.
something about Canyon
Well, I have
Winter? Okay, why don't you go ahead and give your
Okay,
report on Canyon Winter?
This book here is called Canyon Winter, and it's written by Walt Morey, and it's about a young boy named Peter Grayson who got stuck in a canyon.
For the winter.
Oh, okay, who got stuck in the canyon for one winter, even though he didn't want to. Now, how it happened, he was flying over the Rockies to meet his father with Frank Eldridge. That was the pilot. And they decided to fly lower so they could look at all the beautiful scenery and the trees and things. But when they were going back to their regular flight plan, the motor went off, and they had to crash land. When the plane hit, Frank's neck broke, and he died. And Peter's all alone, and he doesn't know anything about the wilderness, and he's a city boy. And so he hoped that he would be able to be spotted by some search planes, but none came. And so on the second day that he was out there, he decided to try and hike out, even though he didn't have any food and he didn't have a compass and didn't have any idea where he was or where the nearest town was. So, and then he was packing up his sleeping bag, and he saw a deer go around a bend in the river, and he figured that there must be a way out. So, because if the deer got around, that means he could get around. So, as he came around the bend, he saw in the middle of a clearing there was this big. What do you think there was in that big clearing?
No, that's not fair. I haven't read the book. That's why I think it's not fair. I would like to. I have read other books by Walt Morey, and I hope to get a hold of this one. It sounds like the kind of book you don't want to end.
Mm-hmm. It is.
We talked about this yesterday, too. Wasn't it Dominic, the one that you said you wish would never end?
Yeah.
But there are, like, a lot of the books by Walt Morey and, what were the Great Brain at the Academy, this one. there are several other stories written by the same author. Maybe we should write Stieg and ask him if he'll write a follow-up to Dominic.
Yeah, I wish they'd have another thing. More adventures of Dominic.
Well, thank you very much for coming with us today. I think we better get back to our classes.
Wow, Mary Claire, it's fun, isn't it, to see children who can talk about stories so eloquently. We had to admit that when we heard them, we were pretty excited about the level of discussion they were having about those books which were being considered for the award. It's fun to know that those kinds of things can be done with boys and girls. They've obviously been involved in discussing books for some time. In that same light, we've asked Mary Claire to share with you a rather special story, one that maybe in turn you would find fun to share with the children that you work with.
The book is this year's Caldecott Medal winner, Arrow to the Sun, illustrated by Gerald McDermott, published by Viking Press. It's a Pueblo adaptation of a Pueblo myth about the Lord of the Sun and how he was brought to the earth. I hope you'll enjoy it. Long ago, the Lord of the Sun sent the spark of life to earth. It traveled down the rays of the sun through the heavens, and it came to the Pueblo. There it entered the house of a young maiden. In this way, the boy came into the world of men. He lived and grew and played in the Pueblo, but the other boys would not let him join their games. "Who is your father?" they asked. "You have no father." They mocked him and chased him away. The boy and his mother were sad. "Mother," he said one day, "I must look for my father. No matter where he is, I must find him." So the boy left home. He traveled through the world of men and came to Corn Planter. "Can you lead me to my father?" he asked. Corn Planter said nothing, but continued to tend his crops. The boy went to Pot Maker. "Can you lead me to my father?" asked the boy. Pot Maker said nothing, but continued to make her clay pots. Then the boy went to Arrow Maker, who was a wise man. "Can you lead me to my father?" Arrow Maker did not answer, but because he was wise, he saw that the boy had come from the sun, so he created a special arrow. The boy became the arrow. Arrow Maker fitted the boy to his bow and drew it. The boy flew into the heavens. In this way, the boy traveled to the sun. When the boy saw the mighty Lord, he cried, "Father, it is I, your son." "Perhaps you are my son," the Lord replied. "Perhaps you are not. You must prove yourself. You must pass through the 4 chambers of ceremony, the kiva of lions, the kiva of serpents, the kiva of bees, and the kiva of lightning." The boy was not afraid. "Father," he said, "I will endure these trials." When the boy came from the kiva of lightning, he was transformed. He was filled with the power of the sun. The father and his son rejoiced. "Now you must return to earth, my son, and bring my spirit to the world of men." Once again, the boy became the arrow. When the arrow reached the earth, the boy emerged and went to the pueblo. The people celebrated his return in the dance of life.